I never figured I'd live to see Patricia Wilson, the queen bee of Oakwood Estates, the one who made everybody's life a living checklist hauled out of her own picture-perfect colonial house in cuffs, sunlight bouncing off her hair like it was part of the show. But there she was, her hands behind her back, escorted right past the azaleas she probably measured with a ruler, while two cops tried their best to look like this wasn't the highlight of their week. All of us, the so-called neighbors, were standing around pretending we just happened to be out watering the grass or checking the mailbox. But let's be real, half the cul-de-sac was about to sprain their necks trying to get a good look. And Patricia, never one to let an audience go to waste, shouted across the lawn, "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am? I'm the HOA president." You could practically hear her capitalizing those letters. Meanwhile, I was just leaning against my driveway, arms folded with my 2 trash cans freshly returned, mind you, lined up beside me like trophies. Couldn't help but smile when the younger officer gave me a little nod like, "Yeah, justice comes in weird packages sometimes, doesn't it?" Let me back up a sec. This whole thing started about 3 months before that spectacle back when I first moved into Oakwood Estates. I worked nights as a nurse at the hospital, 12 hours on 12 hours off sleep whenever you can, and I honestly thought I'd found the perfect quiet place to crash recover and maybe meet some decent folks. I didn't know I'd landed smack in the middle of the Stepford Olympics. First week I missed the Thursday morning trash pickup because I was coming off a shift crashed for a few hours and didn't think to bring the bins back till dusk. The next day, I find this screaming neon violation taped to my front door quoting Section 8.3 of the HOA bylaws about refuse containers being out more than 4 hours after pickup, signed, of course, by Patricia herself, complete with her contact info just in case I wanted to send her a thank you card. I figured, hey, maybe she's just doing her job right. But I was wrong. Oh, I was so wrong. 2 weeks later, after a night so brutal I couldn't remember my own name, I forgot again. This time, it's not just a notice. Patricia sends an email with time-stamped photos of my trash can sitting lonely at the curb every hour on the hour like she was running a stakeout. Second violation documented. $50 fine has been assessed. You know what I mean. At that point, I was too tired to argue, so I paid up, but I decided I'd introduce myself and try to explain. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was a human being behind the HOA president's sash. So I walk over 4 houses down to her palace manicured lawn, changing seasonal wreaths, the whole Martha Stewart starter pack. I introduce myself. "Hi, I'm James. I just moved in Elmwood Drive. Wanted to talk about the trash can thing." She looks at me up and down, lips pursed her tan, the color you only get from tanning beds and Caribbean resorts. "Yes, the new resident who can't seem to follow simple rules," she says like she's announcing the weather. I try to explain my night shift, see if there's any wiggle room, maybe a text to a neighbor, maybe just a little understanding, but she cuts me off. Rules apply to everyone. I didn't write them, I just enforce them. She actually hands me a printed copy of the bylaws, 68 pages, 3 staples, color-coded tabs. "Familiarize yourself before our next interaction," she says with a gold necklace bouncing on her chest like a badge of office. I tried, man. I really did. I set reminders on my phone, begged a neighbor or two for backup when I knew I'd be working anything to stay under the radar. But Patricia had it out for me. I'd catch her walking her dog past my house smartphone up like she was casing the joint, or idling in her luxury SUV across the street, sunglasses on, probably narrating my crimes to the group chat. And let's talk about that group chat, good Lord. I joined thinking maybe I'd find out about block parties or who to call if a tree fell, but all I found were Patricia's thinly veiled digs about certain new residents needing extra reminders. Some neighbors DM'd me warnings that she'd done this before, but mostly folks kept their heads down. I don't blame them. You don't mess with the HOA president if you want to keep your mailbox. Then came the showdown, the real breaking point. I'd just finished 3 straight night shifts covering for a sick coworker, and all I wanted was sleep. When I woke up that afternoon, Patricia was pounding on my door like she was serving a warrant herself, waving her phone and a folder like she was auditioning for Judge Judy. Third violation this month, she says, not even pretending to be polite. We'll be reviewing your case at next week's board meeting. I'm wiped, but I try to explain again that I'm a healthcare worker and maybe there could be a little flexibility. She cuts me off, stone-faced. Your profession is irrelevant. Maybe Oakwood Estates isn't the right community for your lifestyle. She actually says that straight to my face. I took a deep breath because I knew losing my cool would only make her happier and said, "Fine. I'll bring the cans in now and I'll see you at the board meeting." That would have been the end. Except the next day I notice my trash cans are gone, not rolled down the street, not tipped over, but vanished. Patricia's walking her little dog, sees me searching and waves like she's just won bingo. That's when it hit me. Thankfully, I'd put up security cameras, the first-week-old city habit. So I checked the footage. Sure enough, there's Patricia sneaking over around midnight, glancing both ways, and then wheeling my bins right into her own garage. If you ever want to see a grown man lose it in complete silence, that was me. But I kept my head and called the non-emergency police line. Officer on the phone says, "If you've got video, we can look into this. That's theft no matter what it is." 2 hours later, a patrol car's in my driveway. The officer shakes his head, watching the footage. "This is pretty clear-cut," he says. "We'll pay Ms. Wilson a visit." So now I'm watching out the window, popcorn in hand, as the officer knocks on Patricia's door. I see her gesturing, probably accusing me of running a trash mafia. The cop leaves empty-handed, but an hour later he calls me. "She's refusing to return your property. Says it's an HOA matter, needs a warrant to open her garage." I ask what happens next. He laughs. Honestly, we don't usually get a warrant over trash cans, but her attitude was, let's just say, not helpful. We're moving ahead with it. The next morning, 2 cruisers roll up. By this point, word's gotten out and the neighborhood's gathering like it's movie night. The officers show Patricia the warrant, and out comes her voice loud enough for the next zip code. "This is harassment. You're ganging up on me." When they haul my trash cans out of her garage, she's red-faced, shouting about teaching me a lesson. One cop says, calm as can be, "Ma'am, the HOA doesn't have the legal authority to take personal property." She insists, but he just shakes his head. "You're about to learn a lesson about property laws." And then slow motion. The part nobody saw coming. Patricia flat out refuses to let them finish their report, tries blocking the officers, keeps arguing, waving her arms, the whole neighborhood holding its breath. Finally, one officer sighs. "Ma'am, place your hands behind your back. You're being arrested for petty theft and interfering with an officer. You ever see someone go from queen of the block to completely blindsided in 3 seconds? That was Patricia sputtering. "You can't be serious over trash cans." "Do you know how much my house is worth?" Didn't matter. She got read her rights, put in the car, the works, and all of us just stood there, stunned. After years of her rule book and threats, the universe finally handed out a little poetic justice. It wasn't over either. Patricia got charged with petty theft, trespassing, obstruction, the works. Hired the fanciest lawyer in town, but the judge wasn't buying it, not for a second. She had to pay $500 due, 40 hours of community service and cherry on top. She was ordered to stay away from my property. At the emergency HOA meeting the next week, standing room only, Patricia tried to play the victim, but when the vote came to remove her as president, it was unanimous. For the first time ever, she didn't have a single supporter. I swear, as they read the result, her face just crumbled. "But I've been president for 7 years, she whispered, like maybe history would come to her rescue. Nobody said a word. She just sat there stunned for once with nothing to say. Now every time I bring my bins in, on time, I can't help but look over at Patricia's house blinds, tightly drawn for sale sign poking out of the grass. Some folks say she got what she deserved. Others think it went too far. But hey, that's Oakwood Estates for you. Sometimes you don't know what kind of community you really live in until the trash hits the fan. So let's hear it was Patricia, a monster, or just misunderstood. Was I right to push back, or should I have just played along? Let me know what you think about HOA power trips, neighborhood drama, and where you draw the line between rules and respect. I know I'll never look at a trash can the same way again.